Hi, Miami, and hi, Village of Palmetto Bay. David Winker here. I'm happy to be here with Dr. Hetu.
Good
Do you
morning.
prefer if I call you Caroline or Dr. Hetu?
Caroline is fine.
That's great. Caroline is a physician and a homeowner who's about to be affected or could be affected by a proposed bridge.
Yes, very true.
And we're going to talk about that bridge. We're going to talk about what's led to this bridge. But let me start with this, Caroline. Describe to me what are we talking about when people hear a bridge? Like, what's wrong with a bridge? Why should we be upset about a bridge? What's happening?
Well, essentially, the issue is not so much we're building a bridge somewhere that it's needed that's going to help traffic. This whole controversy is about building a small bridge over a canal in the middle of a residential neighborhood that really just connects two little neighborhood streets.
And set the scene for us, as though those who are not in the village, we're basically the village of Palmetto Bay is south of Pinecrest.
Correct.
And it's on the east and the west side of US 1, starting about what cross street?
It starts at about 135th,
135th south.
Yeah.
So we're talking south of Pinecrest.
South of
there.
Pinecrest, 135th or so to about 186.
So tell me about, I actually drove by as part of this, but tell everybody, give everyone a scene of your neighborhood. We're talking west of US 1.
Correct.
And we're talking about quiet residential streets that right now dead end at a canal.
Yes. So actually south of this canal, of this bridge that they're talking about, you have Henry Perrine Elementary School, which is really right at the corner, but a block away from this proposed bridge. All of the neighborhood streets are cul-de-sacs that lead on to 164th Street or and then 168th. We've had traffic pattern issues and speeding issues on 164th, which is the street that leads right to 87th Avenue, where they want to build the bridge, where they've had to, the village of Palmetto Bay in the past, have had to put those islands in the middle of the streets as opposed to full roundabouts in order to slow down the traffic.
To calm the traffic.
To calm the traffic, because we're already having a lot of issues with speeding, endangering those elementary kids who are right there.
So tell me this, it would seem, so I when I picture this neighborhood, it's a quiet residential street. I imagine the
with
people that
trees.
live there love having this dead end. Their kids
Yes.
can play on the street. There's no through traffic. Where is this proposal coming from? Why is there a proposal? Like I would say, when we talk about traffic, you see neighborhoods struggling with cut through traffic. It seems like as a result of the county and the Florida DOT not doing what it should do. And it's, I live in a different neighborhood. I live in Shenandoah. And basically those neighborhoods are brutalized because you have US 1, which hasn't been expanded in 40 years.
Correct.
And there's not enough space. So what do?
Mm-hmm.
It basically they have to go through the neighborhoods to try to get to where they're going.
Correct.
This seems a little bit, it's like you're encouraging. It's like they're actually taking steps to ensure that traffic comes through the neighborhood. Where did this come from? What are the studies that support this?
Well, the village of Palmetto Bay has historically always been against the construction of this bridge, and still to this day is not in favor of.
Well, we'll get to that,
the bridge.
But there was more than one bridge, right? There's a series of bridges.
So there was a grid, a study done many decades ago that essentially wanted to form this grid and essentially wanted to build 5 bridges over the canals that go throughout Palmetto Bay.
And let me stop you there. So if they build these, what would that help? So the idea is, I guess it would. Are we trying to encourage people going south, or people going north? What is the purported? How is this going to help under the proposal? If I'm talking about all the bridges,
Yeah, it won't help.
no, but
They're claiming that it helps the traffic south going north.
So it would help people who are further south,
correct,
get to where they're going up north.
Yeah, so it would help essentially Cutler Bay and Homestead to cut through the village of Palmetto Bay to go north.
So right now, to go north, they have to go Turnpike or US 1.
Correct, or Old Cutler.
So that seems crazy. So the idea is, oh, let's brutalize the village and have them come through here. But I think that one of the things I found interesting about this, I guess we've gotten away from even this concept of, like, it sounds like the 5 bridges is opposed, but now, like, how did it morph into one bridge? How is one bridge going to help traffic?
One bridge won't do anything. And the latest study that they had actually done showed that it would cut traffic by only 1 minute commute, from
average commute time.
The average commute time by only 1 minute. So, the cost of the bridge, which was estimated initially at $3 million pre-COVID and pre-everything, which now we can easily assume has doubled, if not tripled, is only to make a 1 minute difference, according to their own studies.
And, it's interesting is we were talking before the show is, you're a physician, I'm a lawyer. And I always say, sometimes it surprises my physician clients when I say that, I'm in a clinical profession, right? Things need to be evidence driven, data driven. Where is the data? Like, what are we talking about? I mean, I'm assuming they've done studies that show that this one bridge is going to help. You're saying this is all they've come. It's 1 minute of saving time.
Exactly. That is what their studies have shown. And
I mean, what is this going to be? Like a 10-lane bridge? I mean, what are we talking about? I mean, how many cars can you move across this little bridge?
We're talking just 1 lane in each direction, going over a canal in the middle of a neighborhood, in the middle of trees and houses, where kids are playing, right by an elementary school.
It's an interesting problem as somebody who advocates for neighborhoods, because, it's one thing. You see neighborhoods struggling, you say, like they'll say, like, well, neighborhoods evolve, traffic patterns evolve. But this seems like a drastic change for me to go from with my toddlers on a dead end street to becoming, a purported solution to this, right? To have people flooding through that neighborhood. Let's talk about who's in favor of this, who's pushing this, what are the circumstances? So, like, how did this come about? I mean, let me talk personally. Like, when's the first time you heard about this? When did you move into the village?
I moved into the village 8 years ago, and there was some talks about this bridge. It's been something that the village of Palmetto Bay and its constituents have been fighting for a very, very long time, and successfully. Our previous mayor of Palmetto Bay, who is now the
Eugene Flynn. You're talking about your previous commissioner.
Yes,
who's now mayor of Miami-Dade County, Daniela Levine Cava.
Correct. She was actually opposed to the bridge, and fought very hard against it until recently when she became mayor.
So her
position has changed.
She was so Mayor Daniela, I'll call her, was your commissioner. She was opposed to this. This didn't happen. And then, it was a news thing where you instead of electing someone, they appointed Danielle Cohen-Higgins to the position. And I think people were surprised that, like, her first move
was to go against everything that we had been fighting for so long, and everything that we were very vocal about as well, and very involved with,
but she
going against us.
And then she didn't come forward with the plan of the 5 bridges,
just the one.
And what was the reason given for that? Why, how was that bridge chosen of all the bridges?
My understanding is with a new build that they're trying to do down in Cutler Bay, with multi-family homes and everything. So as a solution to the increased population and increased traffic down in Cutler Bay.
But I guess my question is why? Like, it's just like it's one thing to say, here's our comprehensive. You can agree or disagree. The evidence is what the evidence is. But I can see someone saying 5 bridges allows the traffic to flow through. Like, that makes sense to me just intuitively. I'd have to see the data, but that would seem to have some impact, right? It would brutalize a lot of streets, but it seems to. But the idea of just one street, like, it almost smacks of, like, is it like political pandering? Does she really believe that it's going to, I don't know, or is it just the camel nose under the tent, and then they'll do the other ones? I mean, I wonder. It's an interesting thing to push this one bridge. How far away do you live from the bridge?
I live right at the site of the bridge, in the cul-de-sac that is right there.
So, one of the things that happens with something like this is you would think of, and when you go to law school, they talk about like eminent domain and stuff. Like, it's an interesting thing where it's like, what under the proposal, like, what are they giving you guys? Like, what do
Nothing.
You're just going to have traffic zooming past?
We're just going to have traffic zooming past. Is going to unfortunately present a lot of danger for all the kids in the neighborhood and all the kids going to Perrine Elementary. That elementary school is going to be at risk significantly. Our taxes are going to go up and our property values are going to go down.
That's the thing that it's interesting to think about how brutalized. I mean, not to be doomsday for you, but I mean, if you live on that street, I mean, is that going to cut your property? Like, who wants to live?
And it's not even just our street. I mean, everybody's taxes in Palmetto Bay are going to increase. And it's not just 1 or 2 streets that are going to see a decrease in property value. It's going to be, a large section of Palmetto Bay, if not all of Palmetto Bay.
So I know, I was at the commission meeting. You were there.
Yes.
That's how I met you. There was a meeting on Monday night.
Mm-hmm.
Would you describe to me what the meeting was about, and then we'll get to what happened? But like,
okay.
You showed up. Why did you show up? What were you like? What? I guess what I'd say is, are you involved in a lot of village activities? Are you a politically active person on the municipal level?
I have not been in the past, except this is an issue village-wise that has really gotten me involved and gotten a lot of my neighbors.
So the idea
involved.
was.
So I went, and when you were asking about Monday's meeting, there was about 40 people, I would say at least, who showed up, and most of whom spoke very clearly at the meeting and express wholeheartedly their opposition not only to the bridge, but to this interlocal agreement that the county is trying to have the village of Palmetto Bay sign.
So that was the purpose of the meeting.
Yes.
And there was a big turnout.
Yes, there
Everyone
was.
said that was, I think, the biggest turnout that anyone can remember at the village. And could you describe from your perspective how it went? What happened?
I think people were very emotional. They were very passionate, and some even angry at the idea of this interlocal agreement between the village of Palmetto Bay and the county, and this bridge being essentially just shoved down our throats and just imposed, regardless of what the village wants or the people of Palmetto Bay want.
And I think it was interesting because there was did you read shout out to Political Cortadito and Elaine DeValle? Did you read her article, the coverage?
I haven't had a chance yet. So
in the article, like, it was like you have to get down kind of the nitty gritty what happened. It was an interesting thing because the action item, the interlocal agreement, like, nothing happened with it. They didn't do anything. But what they did was I believe it was Steve Cody put up the resolution to say, let's litigate
correct
the passage of this.
Correct.
And I kind of, it's a complicated story, but I'm going to take you back now to what happened when this one bridge was decided. There's a lot of controversy about what happened.
Yeah.
There was COVID was in full swing.
Yes.
There was like it was
passed as a emergency COVID relief plan of sorts.
And it seemed like, there was talk of, basically the residents were like, we want to fight this.
Yes.
And it was interesting for me to hear, I think I personally like the village attorney, and I personally like, Mr. Greenberg. I think they're good lawyers. And it was interesting because it was like they were answering questions along the lines of like, do we have a viable lawsuit? Yes, we do. They were like, yes, we do. Like
we do.
There seems procedural grounds that this was not passed properly. And they're like, but what's the political gain? And I found it interesting from the perspective as a lawyer. It's like, from personal experience, it's like, well, no, you enforce your rights. Like if something is done wrong, maybe it costs some money to hire a lawyer and fight and say like, no, this wasn't passed properly. If you want to do it, at least pass it properly.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was interesting because it seemed like that's where the city kind of arrived at. It was like,
yes.
All right, the will of the residents is tell the county, do it over again. Like you didn't do this right.
Yeah, we mean business. We're not going to be just, we're not going to just roll over because somebody starts, barking. It's not gonna happen that way.
How did I found it very interesting, the emotional roller coaster. I as an attorney, as an advocate, I found it interesting. Like I had never interacted with anyone there. I mean, I know I talked with Steve Cody on a professional level, and I over the years have known him. But the other people I didn't know, and I was impressed. Like for example, the way the mayor handled it, like they did a 180. I mean, I think they were before. Let's back up. I think they were pushing this interlocal agreement, and it was interesting because I think like some people could look at it and say like, whoa, this was really wishy-washy. Like, how do you go from supporting it to not supporting it? But I also, on the other hand, I was like, I don't know. This is kind of maybe what good governance looks like. Like when people overwhelmingly come and say like, no, we don't want this. How did you feel about that from a leadership perspective? You saw them. I thought their comments were thoughtful. At least they said what they felt. How did you leave as far as like, these are your elected officials? Did you feel like they had processed? Like, what was your impression of just the governance that happened that night?
I feel that they listened, that they listened what we had to say, what everybody really had to say, what their concerns were. What the options were. And I think they were very clear on, both sides of the coin and everything, and represented us well. So I'm pleased with how it went.
It's interesting. And so I want to give a shout out. So it's there's some comments. We've actually gotten a lot of comments. So a shout out to Kevin Whitekey, who implores Michael Miller build the bridge. William Patrick Kestel has an interesting comment. He says the following, and I'm gonna direct this to you. Did you ever consider the fact that anti-bridge residents are being manipulated for votes by political figures past and present? If not, you may want to consider it.
Well, I would like to know where he lives. He doesn't live anywhere
But
near
before we get to that, what is like? Do you feel like you're being manipulated? Like what? It was interesting. It's like there. It's almost. Yeah. I see a little bit. There's the pushback seems to be like somehow this is some organized effort by past. Like, have you been involved? Are you aligned with any politician?
Not whatsoever. I think the evidence really speaks for itself, and that's where a lot of people are getting lost and they're not looking at it. The turnpike, for example, was built in 1954 based on, the studies and the population of that time. Well, 20 years later, they're expanding the turnpike because the population had grown so much and the demand had grown so much that the turnpike was insufficient. And they've been expanding it ever since. If you just look at the population of Miami-Dade alone, and that's not even including Homestead or, further south, the population has increased by 1 million people since 1982. And that's a huge increase. And I think, don't quote me on this, but some like 500,000 in the last 10 years. So the studies, so this grid was designed, I think 20 years ago, based on the population that we had then. We have already grown so much that we've outgrown this grid. We've outgrown the studies of back then. And their studies now, when you're showing just a commute change time of 1 minute, their own studies are showing that this bridge will not alleviate traffic, will not alleviate the congestion, and it will not make the flow of people moving from south to north, any different or any better. Real problems need real solution. And the only way that they can do that, if Miami-Dade was actually serious about the traffic problems on south, is to either build another highway over the bus lanes or do something with the turnpike. They have to create another highway.
I think part of it's interesting. So I'm going to read you a comment that it's going to make you mad, and it's like, this is what we, I think sums up the passion. So it's William Patrick Kestel again, and he says, "You two need to better educate yourselves on the subject before you try to pass off opinions as facts." And I think that really we're saying the opposite. Like, we need
Correct.
facts. Like, we need to know, like, where are the facts that support this one bridge? And like, I haven't personally seen it. I looked into it. I've not seen the traffic studies. We were talking about evidence-based, like I do a lot of advocacy work, and it's usually when developers want to do this, I may disagree with the study, but they come in, with the study, and it says exactly why this is okay, right? That they've done the studies, they've put the ropes out in the road, that the cords you run over. And I think that is the question. I think the question is this, what is the evidence that this decision for this one bridge was based on?
There is none.
Yeah.
And my whole profession is based on evidence. It's how we function as well. Now, the issue with this interlocal agreement was, one, we didn't even have, all we had was a draft at this meeting, and they wanted us to pass and sign, commit to this draft of an agreement, not even the actual full-blown agreement. And second of all, in this agreement, they want to do a pre-construction study, which would only start after the construction of the bridge had actually started, and which was actually not going to have any impact or value in the construction, of this bridge. So there was just so many smoke screens.
One thing I would say to you is, it was interesting because people were asking where was Danielle Cohen-Higgins that night, right? Where is the rep to answer our questions, our concerns? And I think one of the things that I would say about all this is it's an interesting problem. She's in an interesting position because she wasn't elected, so she's not accountable to you guys. And I think that one of the things that I would point out, like just seeing some of these comments, I don't know where these people, I don't know where the commenters live, but I hate when politicians are able to set community versus community. Yes. And I get, if I live in Cutler Ridge, I think there is, it's a defensible position to be like, hey, listen, I'm sorry, lady, you have a nice house on a cul-de-sac. Well, we're gonna change your world. We're gonna drive through this. And I never like that. I never like they're looking out for their interests, right? They want to save that minute, and it's a new route for them. And I get that. I just think that that's the job sometimes of a politician, to make sure we don't go to those baser instincts, right? Like of course, I mean, I would be better off if we just mowed down your house and turned it into a highway, And as one commentator said, like, sell your house and move, And it's an interesting problem. I often say, like, we want a responsive government. We want to prosper in place. We don't want jolts like this where it's like, hey, listen, you got to move, doctor. You can't, your house is going to become unlivable because of a decision made to benefit another community at your expense.
True. Now, if this was even anything that would benefit this other community, we'd have something to talk about. But this doesn't even, it's not a real solution. There is a real problem, and it does need to be addressed. It's not driving over a canal in the middle of a little neighborhood that is going to fix the problem that, the people in Cutler Bay or Homestead or Florida City have.
So it's interesting. We need to have, William, we need to bring you on. We need you here. So William makes an interesting comment. Says, where are the facts? You must be joking. The bridge is part of the master grid plan and has been recommended for completion multiple times since 1978 by the county, Kimley Horn, Corradino.
So 1978. Thank you. So the population has increased 1 million since 1978.
But in his defense, I guess what he's saying is like, yeah, it's way worse than 78. But I would say to you, when I see that, I think I go back. Maybe I'm defending William's point a little bit. It's like, okay, well, yes, but that study, my understanding from that study is they said 5 bridges.
Correct.
Where does it recommend building 1 bridge? Like that was never. My understanding is that was never recommended. No one's ever recommended 1 bridge. Is that correct?
Correct. And 1 bridge is not going to support the estimated 200,000 or 300,000 people who are going to move down south.
Yeah.
It's only 1 small little bridge.
Oh, and great question from William. William, we're going to have you on the call. Hopefully you'll come on because look, here's what he says. He's challenging you. As a physician, you are okay with the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue recommendation to build the bridge, as their report indicates a majority of their trauma calls in our area were negatively impacted by this exact missing bridge.
They did say that. You know who we did not hear from?
Tell me.
The police department on that same fact, and and how they've been impacted and how they think that this bridge will impact, because they have a much different opinion. Now, I don't know if I have not seen the study from the fire department showing all that personally.
I'm sorry that you're becoming the I'm putting you on the spot here.
That's okay.
But like people are asked. So Kevin Wojtke asks, ask her to define section line. Does that mean anything to you? Section line.
Section line.
I don't know what he's trying to say there.
I'm not a politician. I'm just a homeowner.
So I guess maybe one of the arguments that they're resting their hat on is that the Miami-Dade Fire Rescue says we need the bridge for. I don't know. It's very interesting for me to see this because, like I said, I hate to see this. I was involved in forcing the county to stop misusing the half-penny sales tax, and I just can't help having been through that litigation with the county and just like forcing them to actually do what we voted for, like to stop wasting the money on operational costs that we should have. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars that should have solved this problem. Of course, none of it went to what it was supposed to. I find it very frustrating because I feel like it's the county that messed this up, and now they're going to do what we're doing. Community versus community. There's going to be winners. There's going to be losers, and basically people down south saying, "Sorry about your nice neighborhood. We got to build highways through it."
Well, we're not even building a highway. We're building a bridge.
Yeah.
The people down south would be way better off if we did build a highway. They need a real solution. They do have a real problem. They need a real solution to that problem.
Yeah.
And it's not going over a canal in a neighborhood that's going to solve their problem. And especially with all the multifamily homes being built down there and the increase in population that's projected in just the next few years. They need a real solution to support such a large increase in population. The only thing that can support that kind of population are major roads like highways.
And highways involve buying people's homes and actually planning it out instead of just putting a road, just
instead of I don't putting know. A bridge in somebody's backyard. It's
a very interesting thing. I got to tell you something. It's been interesting for me to see because what you're seeing is because we don't have any land.
Yeah.
I'm seeing, developers are coming in and filling in lakes, right? Taking over golf courses, taking over green space. And this is kind of one of those things like, now we're going to take these canals, bridge over everything, to do the connectivity. It makes me a little bit sad. Like I feel, again, just seeing the passions of this, it's a tough circumstance, and it's hard when the process isn't working. Like I would say, whatever side you're on this, it's like there's, as a lawyer, it seems like the process was wrong. It seems like the county process, the way they rush this through as a COVID measure, is wrong and will be overturned. And I think there's some hope that maybe at that point there will be a comprehensive look at how we solve the problem. I was surprised to be at the meeting, to not have a representative from the county there, to have the dialogue, to have people listen. I'm a big advocate of process and this idea of, bad process, bad result.
Yes.
And this has been bad process after bad process.
And currently they're doing it to us, but they can turn around and easily do it to Cutler Bay, to Homestead, to Coral Gables. They can do it to every other community, just the way they're doing it to us.
Now tell me this. One of the questions I have is people are going asking different questions about things. But so the idea is, and walk me through this 1 minute, because my understanding is this 87th Avenue Bridge is gonna. So if it goes, then where do the people go? Where do they end up at a dead end at that point? Isn't there a T they run into?
Yeah, they do. They end up on 144th Street, which is just another street. Then they still need to turn left and go on to US 1. They still always end up having to go on US 1.
I I'd have to for Mr. Kestel. Maybe the study shows that that's a good solution. It sure doesn't seem like it, right?
Well, the studies in the past haven't shown that it was going to solve the problem.
It's going to be interesting to see. This is going to be a heck of a fight. It's interesting. I try to view these as more of a meta thing. Like I always try to put in the overall context of what's happening, in the context of the relationship between the governed and the governing. And this becomes so hard because you have an appointed commissioner who's not answerable to, it makes for a lot of, interesting dynamics. And then just the pure, listen, there's more people down south. If she has to choose, if she, let's assume all good motives, it's defensible on some level to say it's numbers. I'm going to piss you off because I'm going to make a lot of other people happy. And that's just it's kind of, I don't know what their term to use, kind of yucky. It's like yucky politics, right?
Well, at the end of the day, when the bridge is built and they don't see a difference, because like the studies have shown, they're expecting just a 1 minute difference. So when it doesn't change their lives and they're still stuck in traffic, then what?
Do you know anything about this? It says there are 13 bridges in Palmetto Bay. Please explain if there's any difference in property values, crime, safety of children on either side of those 13 bridges that have been standing since the 1950s and 60s in VOPB. It's a good question. I think, Madeline sums it up best about, it's about grid completion. I think that they're advocating for finish the job that was supposed to be done. I think that your response to that is this idea of
we've already outgrown it. And
it's outdated.
It's already outdated. And the county itself, by putting in that interlocal agreement, stating that we should have a pre-construction study done, that to me is their own admission that there needs to be a study done before we go forward with anything, because it may just not be, it may not have the same value it used to 20 years ago when they came up with this, especially now that COVID has changed the way people work and has changed so much how everything functions. So, the county itself said we need a pre-construction study. So let's start with a pre-construction study then. Let's look at today. What are we dealing with today, and what are the solutions that we can come up with today? Because there needs to be
spoken by a clinician. Spoken like a
Yeah.
clinician. Like we need the facts.
Because everybody is getting all wound up and fighting about something that was said 30 years ago. It was 30 years ago. We need now. And then we need solutions for now. If I lived down south, I would be fighting for something a whole lot more than 1 minute.
It's interesting. I'm going to leave with that because it does seem a little cynical to there's passion here. The comments, and thank you so much for watching and thanks for engaging. There's passion there that says we need this bridge. Like they are passionate about this bridge, that this bridge is needed. And it's interesting to think about how like is this just politics? Like are they just giving, like are you throwing a bone to people to say we're doing something, when it's not a real solution?
Exactly. That's exactly what they're doing. And they're hoping that the people down south, buy it. And say, oh, okay, well, if they say, that this is going to fix everything, then it must be true.
Well, thank you for tuning in. We really, I really do appreciate all the comments. This issue, we're going to have to do a follow-up. We're going to we got to bring in some Cutler Ridge people to talk about it and get down to it. And we have been challenged that we don't know the facts. And I think we need, we need to, I think that's kind of like, it's funny to see your face when they say, it's like, yeah, I want facts. Like I want to study. Give me the facts, update the information. So, well, great. Thank you, everybody. We really appreciate it. And thank you for coming on.
You're very welcome.
I think you're a perfect, as far as I know, you're not affiliated with what do they call them? What do they call them? Past and you're being manipulated. You didn't know you were being manipulated by past and present.
That must be.
So thank you everyone for tuning in. We really appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Doctor. Thank you.